All right, Gearheads, welcome to the show. We just watched George Russell win the Formula One Austrian Grand Prix. What a fantastic finish to this race. This is John Massengale, joined by Bob Varsha. Jonathan Green is not with us today. Bob, I wouldn't have predicted that, except actually I did, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Credit where credit's due, and you were luckier than George Russell with that pick. But
that is exactly right.
that was a fun race. It was kind of processional for a while. We saw really more pit stops than passes, at least on the TV feed. Another big strategic fight. Was the whole field against the Pirelli tires most of the way. Lots of pit stops. Charles Leclerc pitted 4 times. Pretty amazing stuff. There was some contact, and there were a lot of exciting moments. Of course, it all came together in the last few laps as Verstappen's lead over Lando Norris shrank due to a bad pit stop, and then Norris attacked, and finally, with the laps running out, he got out front, but not without contact with Verstappen, which was judged to be Verstappen's fault. Punctured tires on both cars. Verstappen could continue, Lando could not. So they put reds on Verstappen's car. He grabbed the fast lap point. So no rest for the wicked there. Exciting, upsetting result. And there was a good point made on the broadcast about had Oscar Piastri not had his lap deleted in qualifying and started third in the field, this could have been a McLaren 1-2 today. Instead, we have a Ferrari on the podium. George Russell gets his second career victory, and one McLaren winds up in the middle of the sandwich.
Well, you said that it was deemed that Max Verstappen was at fault. The first replay I saw, I was like, "That's Max. That's Max's fault." And I was already kind of defensive in my own head, thinking they're not going to blame Max. But then, they showed it again. I was like, "There's no way they're not going to call this for Max." I think it was clear that this was Max's fault, and I think Lando got in his head because Max, how many laps? It was about 25 to go when Max started complaining about his tires, and then he started complaining more and more, and then he had a pit stop that I believe was 6.9. We tweeted it. I'll tell you right now.
Get the left rear off. Yep.
Yeah, 6.5. And then Lando pitted at the exact same time right behind him. Literally just a couple seconds behind him. And his was 2.9. So they made up 3.6 seconds in the pit stop. And then from that moment on, Lando was on his bumper for most of the last 20 odd or so laps.
Yeah. Everybody gave it everything they had. And if you watch the TV broadcast, I know you watch TV Pro, different feed, the FIA feed, Formula One feed, but the announcers sound like somebody got robbed, somebody got killed. It was like, oh my gosh, whose fault? What a terrible thing to have. It was a wonderful thing to have happen.
It's racing. Right?
It's racing. Yeah. It's, when the time came to judge, then they judged that the reigning triple world champion, overstepped. And you're right, Jack Aitken on the BBC radio feed and Martin Brundle on the Sky TV feed, instantly, nope, that's Max's fault.
Yeah,
give him a penalty, 10 seconds. That's appropriate.
Yeah, I didn't understand that because I thought the tone anyway, but I'm just excited because this was some fantastic racing. Yes, we had a very, like you said, processional in the middle, but you knew there was going to be pit stops, right? We all knew this was coming. You knew the strategy, and Lando just hung in there long enough. He was sitting at 6 to 8 seconds for most of behind Verstappen for most of that middle section of the race. And sure enough, all it took was one uncharacteristically bad pit stop for Red Bull. They have been the king. They have the fastest pit stop of the year at 1.9 seconds. Yep. They had Verstappen's first pit stop was a good one, and I'm just looking at my notes, see if I have that one in here. But they're always in the mid twos, it seems like, right? And that's 6.5 seconds.
Not the low twos, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, mid to low twos. So yeah, that's it just not. This is what happens in racing. You can't be perfect every single time.
That's right. It was, and we said going into the race in our pre-race show that, there's going to be a lot of stops. Pirelli was recommending 2. Some teams ran more than that as they were dissatisfied with the way their tires were performing. And we said the pit crews are going to have a chance to make a difference. Short pit lane, pit stop work will be critical, and it turned out to be pivotal. The critical point of the race came in the pits.
Yeah, and we always talk about all the different things that can happen in racing, and we talk about how it's a team sport. The drivers get all the glory, and these days the team principals get a lot of that glory. But a 2.9 second pit stop from Lando Norris, a good pit stop, made the difference today.
Mm-hmm. And what's the expression? Fortune favors the brave. You were brave enough to pick George Russell to win, and he did. And Toto Wolff was given the option by our Chris Medland to predict the winner. He wouldn't say so because he was afraid he'd look stupid if he picked his guys to be competitive in this race. And lo and behold, he picks up the win.
You know what? We've got that clip from Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff right now.
Toto, we're talking about Mercedes versus Ferrari. Do you think you have a pace advantage today against Ferrari?
So dangerous to say that because in half an hour it could look really stupid if I say yes. So I think you cannot discount anyone.
Yeah, in 2 hours you look really brilliant. Is really what happened there.
Yeah, that's fun.
I'm
just scanning points to see. Red Bull is in good shape.
Look,
boy, that sure tightens up the battle for second in the championship.
It also tightens up the battle for what, 7th in the championship? Let's see where the Haas team ends up today with constructor standings.
Yeah,
because going into today,
big points all for the Haas.
Yeah, they were 8th going into today with 7 points. Of course, Alpine ahead of them with 8 points. So I'm going to hit the refresh and see if they've updated that. They have. Haas now 19 points. Alpine with 9, so a 10-point swing, which is huge at the bottom there. So Haas moves up to 7th. What a fantastic day for the Haas F1 team.
Yeah, no question. And both drivers drove well. At one point, the two of them were running nose to tail ahead of Max Verstappen, and he couldn't deal with him. He couldn't get by him, and they wouldn't let him by, which was kind of surprising because you'll remember in practice or one of the earlier events this weekend, Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas gave Max Verstappen a tow as he went for his fast lap. So it was, all bets were off when they actually got to the points paying race, and the Haas cars looked good, I have to say.
And at the beginning of the race, Max Verstappen had a fantastic launch, right? He jumped out. At that point, he jumped out probably, 3 car lengths by the end of the first straight. It was at least a couple. And then he took off and he started building that gap. He built that gap that pretty much stayed for the first 50 laps. He built that gap of 7 seconds, maybe in 3 or 4 laps. It was very quick. And I thought, oh boy, this is going to be an ugly, dominant win, reminiscent of last year for Max Verstappen. And lo and behold, everything turns upside down. So fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. You notice who else got a good start? George Russell got a heck of a start, like he did a week ago in Barcelona, where he went from whatever it was, 4th to 2nd. And same thing here. He just came charging through.
Yeah. And at the beginning there, I thought we were going to have multiple battles at the back, because did you see Hamilton and Russell going at it, swapping back and forth at the very beginning of the race too? Yeah. Well, let me just look at the constructor standings as they stand now real quick. So we talked about the Haas F1 team jumping over the Alpine team, but Red Bull with 355, Ferrari with 291, McLaren with 268, Mercedes up to 196, Aston Martin a huge drop down to 58 points there, and then RB 30, and then Haas with 19, Alpine with 9, Williams with 2, and Kick Sauber still with 0 constructor points here. So that was a big change today. Let's see, what about looking at the driver standings? So Verstappen, of course, in the lead with 237. Lando with 156. Now, that is an interesting thing to think about because I thought Lando was going to be able to pit and come back out, but with him not scoring any points today, that just makes the gap bigger to Max Verstappen. So Max Verstappen, ultimately wins that
81 point lead for Max. Yeah, that's more than 3 race victories worth of margin for Max Verstappen over the field. That's pretty amazing considering how competitive the season has been thus far.
Yep. Yeah, and by the way, Chris Medland's going to join us here.
Norris has to be careful.
Who does?
Yeah. Lando Norris is only 6 points ahead of Charles Leclerc right now.
Yeah.
And 16 points ahead of
Carlos Sainz.
21 points ahead of Carlos Sainz. Yeah, this is getting spicy.
Yeah, and Chris is going to join us. Chris Medland's going to join us with his microphone in Austria at the Red Bull Ring here in just a few minutes, and hopefully he'll get some interviews. I want him to go back and get another interview with Toto Wolff.
Toto?
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of Chris, yeah, he's actually getting some interviews. So he's getting some interviews. So he'll send those in. He's got Christian Horner. Let's hear Chris Medland with Christian Horner.
Christian, usually speaking to you about when things have gone well. Max has been driving so cleanly recently, but that was a pretty fighty scrap with Lando Norris. Just talk us through it from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had the race under control. There was an 8-second lead, and the pit stop put us closer than we should have been. Lando had the benefit of the newer tyre with cooler temps than we expected today. So yeah, but then he picked up 4 track violations. So he was going to get a 5-second penalty, and it just felt like he was trying to cause something, up at turn 3. So yeah, very, very frustrating for Max, for the team, and but nonetheless, we've still managed to extend leads in both championships, but not the points we wanted today.
So the stewards gave Max a 10-second time penalty for causing collision. You feel it was Lando that instigated the contact?
I felt that there was a lot of dive bombing going on up there, and yeah, I mean, I need to look at it again. I have only seen it live, so I haven't seen a replay. But the penalty did seem harsh, but is what it is.
Does it feel like this was almost inevitable, though? We've had quite a few races of them starting together. These two are more closely matched in terms of their age and coming through the ranks, and Lando's got a point to prove. Did you think at some point one was going to have to try and stamp their authority on the other?
Well, I thought that was done yesterday in the sprint race, and probably there was a bit of a hangover of that.
And just finally on Checo as well, I mean, 7th place again today, overtaken in that fight with Nico Hulkenberg on the last lap. What caused his struggles again today?
The contact on the first lap with Oscar put a big hole in the side pod, so he was losing a huge amount of straight line speed. So, he was with a wounded car today. So, but nonetheless, at least managed to get some points out of it. And
the car was quick this weekend, though. Is that the main positive to take away?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, 2 pole positions, a sprint race win. Okay, we didn't get the results we wanted today, but we've still managed to take home decent points and extend both championships. So
you have indeed, even in the middle of that chaos. So well done.
Even on.
Well, I'll beg to differ. Well, I guess I was going to say beg to differ, but he didn't say he's seen the replay yet, which.
Yeah, that's way to walk it back, Christian.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, let's get in a quick break, and when we come back, we'll break down the rest of the Austrian Grand Prix right after this. All right, let's see. We're live on YouTube. Let's see. Man, we got lots of comments. Mike Bowles, nice representation of manufacturers on the podium. TW, wow, what an ending. Yep, fantastic. Great points for Haas, he says. Kevin Kelly, well, all the second teamer will be on the podium. Yeah, we'll talk more about that here in a minute, too.
When was the last time we had a podium without at least one Red Bull on?
Yeah, good question. D. Nelson, Verstappen and Norris made a boring race exciting. There's a reason I call him Max the Axe. Lando Norris.
There already is one Max the Axe.
Oh, there's Chris joining us. Good.
Hello.
Hey, Chris, we are in a break right now.
Good timing. At the moment, my signal's holding up, but you'll have to let me know if I do drop out at any point.
All right, you got it. Let's just going through some of the comments. The Wood Source says, "Wow, started my watch for sure that I could forward to the middle and see the finish. No chance of that. Great competition. Lando invested by sending a message to Max on how the race." Yeah, Chris, we just listened to your Horner interview, and we'll talk about that when we come back because
Okay.
I thought that was quite interesting. Andy P, I don't want to say something stupid, but Christian Horner needs to look at that again. There you go, Andy. I think you just summed up our next segment.
Yeah, he was like a baseball manager. He was supporting his guys, but
Yes.
when he looks again, he's going, yeah, well.
Right, here we go. Coming back.
Something there.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60 as the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. CrowdStrike protects against cyber threats so the team can focus on what matters, their next win. The revolutionary cloud-native unified CrowdStrike Falcon platform harnesses the speed and power of the cloud to protect and defend organizations of all sizes against increasingly complex threats, stopping breaches before they happen. Because on and off the track, the stakes couldn't be higher. A split second can make the difference between victory and defeat. When every second counts, protection shouldn't slow you down. It should fuel your momentum. CrowdStrike. To learn more, try CrowdStrike Falcon free today. Visit crowdstrike.com/XM. Casey, our producer, was just literally laughing, rolling when he was using the Max Verstappen come back from the break message because, yeah. Hey, Chris Medland has joined us. Chris, we want to talk about the Christian Horner interview that we listened to right before the break that you sent us. And Bob made a point during the break, and he was just, playing the team manager, defending his team. But man, to me, I was waiting for him to say, hey, look, Max messed up and Max caused that accident. But that did not really happen, did it?
No, as I'm going to steal Bob's term, but you said it before as well. It's like a baseball manager defending one of the players that's getting buzzed. I think, the pitches coming at their heads or whatever, and they know they're going to get tossed from the game by doing it, but they're just going to always have their team members back. That's exactly what Christian was surely doing. Like you said, he hasn't seen it back. I'm surprised if he hasn't seen a replay live, but at the same time, don't forget these teams are then dealing with the aftermath. He's dealing with the pit stop and the rest of the race. So it is true that they might not actually get to look at it as closely as we did. But I think, once he looks at it back, he might struggle to maintain the position that he holds right now from what he said in that interview, because it is why I asked him to clarify. I couldn't say I thought many people would see it that way.
Yeah. Bob, do you agree with me? I thought on the first replay, I said that was Max's fault.
Yeah, absolutely did. And as did the TV announcers, the race driver TV announcers who had the experience. I often disagree with these things. I thought Fernando Alonso got a harsher penalty for Nico Hülkenberg when Hülkenberg was dinged for forcing Alonso off the track. You could see from the onboard, Alonso kind of jerked the steering wheel left to take himself farther off the track to make it look like a more dramatic incident, in my opinion. And everybody immediately saw that Verstappen, moved over on on Lando Norris. You heard Verstappen on the radio afterwards saying, well, I couldn't tell where he was going, if he was going to come left side, right side, so that Max was trying to work the refs to avoid the double move violation. You can't move in response to what the other driver is doing. You can go where you think he's going to go, take away the line that the driver, in your view, is going for. That's legal. That's defensive driving. But you can't wait to see where he goes and then go over there and take that piece of racetrack. That's against the rules. And, I think justice was done.
Hey, Chris, before you jumped on, we were talking about the pit stop, the problem, the slow pit stop that Verstappen had, of 6.5 seconds versus Lando's 2.9. And I remember on the radio, when that was happening, or maybe right as he was coming out, Max said, "Oh my God." And he knew right then that was going to be big trouble. But to me, that's just indicative of the tone that Max had for several laps as Lando, as his tires actually were the problem. He was complaining about his tires more than Lando at that point. He was worried about his tires, and then he knew that gap was going to come down to Lando, didn't he?
Yeah, so as you say, he was struggling more with his tyres towards the middle of that stint and the end of that middle stint, and the gap was, I think it was around the 6-second mark. He got it up at one point back towards 7, and then it dropped to 6 again just before the pit stops. And then I think it was a double whammy for Red Bull, to be fair. They had the delayed stop with the left rear, and they were trying to obviously rectify that as quickly as they could. But then I think wary of what happened with the first round of pit stops, they held Verstappen because he'd been delayed and because Norris was coming in, and they didn't want to send him out and get a penalty for blocking off Norris. So that delayed him further and put Lando right on him. But as Christian said in that interview as well, Lando had the new set of tyres. That was a strategic advantage for McLaren, it turned out, in the end, even though we had Mario Isola telling us, didn't we, pre-race that Red Bull had more flexibility. But just because you have more flexibility doesn't mean you always call it right, or that the strategy doesn't kind of play into the hands of another team. So it did all kind of conspire against Verstappen. And I think that's why we were seeing him defend so hard, was that he was very aware that if Norris got past him, I don't think he was getting him back. And even with Norris's potential penalty coming, which he only got for the second attempt to pass Verstappen, where he went wide trying to get past him. That was the fourth time exceeding track limits, and that's the one that got him a penalty. But prior to that, I think we were kind of seeing that Lando had every chance of getting by, and even still, it was a 5-second time penalty. If he could have got by early enough, he still could have pulled that gap out, looking at the pace he had. So, it was feisty, and I'm just seeing, actually, I'm going to try and grab a word here. I'm going to have to be second in line to this one, because he's doing an interview with his own press crew, or his own social media crew. It's Daniel Ricciardo, who's had a good day, and I was going to try and grab that. But I was also going to say, I've just been watching where Lando and Max were next to each other in their TV pen doing interviews at one point. Pretty cold body language, as you can imagine.
Yeah. Hey, and you know what? We got to give George Russell the due. He won the race today, right? Yes, he didn't win it on flat out pace or whatever, but he put himself in the right position. He qualified third, and he had a great start to the race, as Bob pointed out earlier. And, that's racing. You put yourself in the right position, more momentum for Mercedes. You got to be happy for George. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know if you guys heard this, but after he won, I think he said yabba dabba doo. Did he say yabba dabba doo, or is that just me?
What?
Yeah. We need to play it back. I wish Casey.
I'm not sure about that. I thought you were going to bring up the fact that you predicted his victory.
Well, I did that at the opening of the show, Chris.
Yeah, we've been down that rabbit hole.
I was waiting for it.
Oh, yeah.
Something I noticed scanning these results, 5 drivers in that race, after all the talk about the tires won't last, Pirelli saying everybody's got to do at least a 2-stop, don't do a 1-stop. 5 drivers completed the race on 1 stop, including one who made the points. Pierre Gasly in 10th place did 1 stop in that race, as did his teammate, Ocon, Bottas, and who else?
That's pretty amazing.
Somebody
I didn't
else.
realize that. Stroll too, huh?
Lance Stroll also did a 1-stop. What's really weird is that Gasly got 10th place with a 1-stop, just ahead of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, who stopped 4 times.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what a disaster of a race it was for Ferrari, doesn't it?
Oh, my gosh, yes. Especially for Leclerc.
Yeah, well, Leclerc stopped 3 times before the halfway point of the race.
Yeah. And that, of course, he had to stop because he damaged the front wing in a collision on lap 1. So that threw the whole strategy in a handbasket. And then he couldn't get the life out of the tires. So I wonder if they did other damage to that car, whether it was some toe in or suspension damage, or can't imagine they got the underfloor with a, rear to front bonk with another car. But
hey, Chris, what about the final lap after George Russell won? Is it Perez passed Hülkenberg, and then Hülkenberg passed him back? That was a fantastic little segment there, and a really great way for Haas F1 to cap off the double points for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, big result. We spoke to Ayao Komatsu, didn't we, on the grid? Clearly a good omen for him. But I must admit, this is part of the problem now, is that there was so much going on at the end of that race. It'd been fairly tame until the end of the second stint, I guess. And at that stage, it was kind of like, well, maybe it's going to be a boring one. That's like, it's coming to life. But so much happened. I don't know where to run in the paddock right now to get people. I was thinking myself between Ferrari and McLaren. So I'm hoping to speak to Fred Vasseur in a second to get his take. And I'm thinking Andrea Stella might appear at some stage here. So I'm going to be hopefully getting both at one point. So that will be nice to get Ferrari's take on a tough day, but still a podium. And then I want to know what Stella thinks of partly of Christian Horner's comments actually at this stage.
Yeah, it's like one of our listeners, Kevin Kelly, was talking about. This is going to, what happened with Verstappen and Lando is going to help some of these other teams, including Carlos Sainz, move up to a podium position, and the Haas F1 team, and Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel Ricciardo out-qualified his teammate this weekend and outscored his teammate this weekend because he finished 9th, and scrolling down to 14th where Yuki Tsunoda finished. That's got to be encouraging for Daniel Ricciardo, but I'm not sure we saw much of their racing. What do you think, Bob? Did Daniel Ricciardo have a good race today? Did he have a much better race than Tsunoda, or is it just a luck of the draw? How did it play out in your mind?
Oh yeah, I think you were right the first time. I think Danny Ricciardo just outdrove teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Had the better strategy, managed his tires better, all the things that are necessary to do better. The question is whether or not it's going to help him in the eyes of the Red Bull organization. And after what Dr. Helmut said about the job of the RB team, the VCARB team, if you will, is to bring up young drivers. So obviously Helmut Marko has his eye on Liam Lawson. And I get the sense that no matter how well Ricciardo does, his age and tenure and experience are going to work against him because Marko is sort of setting up the excuse that we're going to bring in Liam Lawson because we want new blood in the team.
Yeah, well,
I think that could be the case. Actually, I was just trying to get that word with Daniel Ricciardo, but wasn't allowed. He was doing his social media filming, and they wanted to usher him straight into the hospitality unit. But sadly, I'll see if I can grab him maybe later if he comes back out again. I've just seen Andrea Stella as well head towards the stewards once again with one of his team personnel. But we've timed this well because Fred Vasseur's here, and I think we're going to head back towards we're staying put. Oh, perfect. I'm right in the middle of an absolute mess. But Fred, I think I'm good to go, so I'm going to jump in anyway. And just ask, or is he about to go on TV? How great is this for live radio? So there's a TV crew. Who's going first, Sylvia?
Well, I think you go first.
Brilliant. Fred. Terrible. Oh, he's going to throw water over Gunther Steiner. Now, this would be good TV, not great radio. Fred, I'm going to jump in before we lose you. Firstly, with Charles. Big disaster the first lap, but were you disappointed not to get back in the points?
Well, I think it would have been on another track. It would have been possible now with the short lap that then you are quite quickly into the traffic. And with the DRS train, it's also difficult to overtake. It means that if the guy in front of you is slower, but if he has the DRS train, that you are struggling. He pushed that, but for sure when you after 30 seconds of race, you are one lap down. It's a tricky one.
Did you just see it as a first lap incident? No blame?
No, honestly, I didn't. I'm not watching the TV on the pit wall. It means that I didn't watching exactly what's happened. But for me, I think it's more a matter of Perez diving on the apex and Piastri closing on him. But he was in the middle like a sandwich. And
Flip side though, contact between the top two opened the door to a podium today. How pleased are you that the team kind of got everything together? But did you think you could have held off Piastri later on to hold on a second?
we were not that far away to be. I think the fight between Piastri, Russell, Carlos was a very tight one, mainly managed by the traffic where we were taking one lap to some of the drivers were not very nice. That's life. And it is like it is now. That for sure, it's overall, I think it's a good result for Carlos. We have a bit of frustration, but because the coin could have gone on the other direction.
And did you have a take on that crash or collision?
I don't. No, I didn't watch my race. That we are focused on the data, not on the TV, and I didn't see exactly what's happened between Norris and Verstappen.
It'll be a talking point for a while, but I'll let you catch up with it later.
I'm sure that I will have thousands of times the question.
Yeah, thank you, Fred.
Love that expression. The coin could have gone in the other direction.
Good. I'm hope someone's going to nominate me for some sort of award for the intro to that interview. Surely that was the greatest journalistic waffling and mess you've ever heard, right? So sorry, listeners.
I'm impressed the way you blew by Sylvia to get into the interview. Normally, those PR traffic cops will cut you off at the knees if you're not properly respectful.
I just put them all on mic themselves now, don't I? We were giving props to some of the McLaren PRs last week. Sylvia today from Ferrari. We're going to make them all stars.
Oh, Chris, that's a great. All right, well, we're going to take a break to compose ourselves. And when we come back, we'll have more brilliance from Chris Medland in the paddock. Back after these messages. Bob Varsha, you have a fan. Mark Torres, who says, holy smokes, it's Bob Varsha. I haven't seen you since F1 was on the Speed channel. I'll subscribe to this channel. I missed the broadcast team during the Alonso-Schumacher rivalry. So you got a fan, Bob.
Well, where you been all this time? I've been right here. Where have you been? Thanks, Mark.
Let's see.
Here's my ironic note of the day. Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin, who were nobody and nowhere all weekend long, and finished 18th, a lap down, but he set fast lap, did Fernando.
There you go. That's probably why he finished.
Place. Of course, he doesn't get the point, but...
How many pit stops? Did he pit late to grab that?
Yeah, he with like a lap to go, I think. Well, he had one last lap to do it in since he got lapped during the race, but he was 18th, and I can't use the ESPN site. On lap 70, 3 pit stops. One of them, no doubt, to bolt on a set of the soft reds. And why would you even do that? I mean, you're not going to get the point because you're not in the top 10.
Well, and they're not in the bottom 3 or 4 where 1 point makes a difference. They're in that no man's land right in the middle. Hey, Mark Torres, thanks for finding us and tuning in. And for people that are new, this is what we do. We stay live on YouTube during the breaks on our SiriusXM show, so you get a little bit of behind the scenes. Let's see. Hey, D. Nelson. I'm not the only one who heard this. He says, I'm not the only one who heard him say yabba dabba doo. I thought I was crazy. So Casey was the Twitter sphere agrees. Okay, good. I thought I heard that. Andy P says, okay.
Big Fred Flintstone fan. He's George Russell.
Andy P says, Chris, coming back, Chris.
You know, he'll do his Woody Woodpecker.
I'm George Russell, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
The Speed City F1 post-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. All right, let's see. Good job, Casey, getting George Russell to bring us back instead of Max Verstappen. He's laughing. Yes, Chris, I was just about to tell you on some comments that we're getting on social media that he said that, he said if you can get Stella, Andrea Stella, the McLaren team principal, he said that would be a heck of an interview if you can get him. So, yeah, keep
Well,
your eyes
if
peeled.
anyone heard as I absolutely crashed through that Fred Vasseur one, it was that Stella's gone with Randy Singh, one of the senior. He was actually, I think, the head of strategy at McLaren, but seems to be performing a bit of a sporting director role for the team at the moment. The two of them have gone to the stewards, which I've had confirmed now from McLaren that they have headed there. There's nothing that I'm aware of. There's nothing that I'm aware of in terms of an ongoing investigation. I've seen that Norris did get a 5-second time penalty for exceeding track limits multiple times. Now, maybe they've gone to query that, but yeah, that's where we've had the. Sorry, I'm just trying to dodge my way through. Actually, Daniel Ricciardo's here, but I don't think I can grab him again. Two failings in a row. That's where the Stella's gone. So right now, there's not an opportunity to speak to him. Now, I always mention this, but European rounds, especially double headers and triple headers, get pretty busy. And everyone's trying to pack down while also run around and get all these different stories. And there's so many of them right now. So I will keep an eye on McLaren. I'm going to see if I can put myself in the right place in the pit lane as well. If anyone remembers our show 2 years ago, George Russell won his first race in Brazil when we managed to get an interview with him while he was swigging champagne in front of the in front of the Mercedes garage. So we'll try and do the same again in about 20 minutes or so.
Okay, awesome. Hey, Chris, what about the Ocon Gasly fighting the battles? That was pretty interesting as well. I kept waiting for some actual fireworks and coming togethers.
Yeah, they kept it clean, didn't they?
Yeah.
Kept it very clean, which was, I think I tweeted it out. I was like, credit where it's due. I think we were all watching it on the edge of our seats thinking, here we go. But no, nicely handled by the two of them. You know, it's kind of what you do want to see. You want to be able to let your drivers race. You want them to fight hard, but not really hurt each other's race too much. And yeah, I think they were both sensible. So I'm sure, the next time that they do it and they're not quite so sensible, we'll jump on them for it. But on this occasion, it was very well handled.
Hey, Bob, I'll come back to you in a second. But Chris, one more thing. You had a little time while we came on the air. We're waiting on you. But I didn't see what all happened to Lando Norris's car, I just realized, and why he couldn't come back out.
Oh, he got huge damage. So his right rear tire delaminated. He was trying to get back to the pits a bit too quickly, I think, as well. And as that fell apart, it was flinging the rubber and smashing his floor up and his side pod and his brake ducts, and debris was going everywhere. So that's why there's a virtual safety car, because the debris was all over the pit entry. And they had to quickly get on and sweep a bit of it away, get the biggest bits of it away, so there wasn't any risk of punctures to anyone else. So that's why, he couldn't get going again. The team did have a look into it, I think, and just decided, no, there's far too much damage. So if we send him back out, it's pretty much undrivable. And by the time I think they'd assessed the damage as well, he was already going to be out the points. So a real frustration, because we talked about it maybe being, just desserts in terms of the penalty that Max got. But in the end, it was, Max still scores an extended championship lead. But someone else who scored with both cars is Ayao Komatsu, who I've got here again. We spoke to you on the grid. I'm pretending I'm your lucky charm. Came and asked if you could score with both. You said you could. And the guys in the studio were saying you were very confident. Were you so confident you get this result today, 6th and 8th?
No, absolutely not 6th and 8th. Obviously, our target was always to score with both cars. So 9th and 8th, we are going for. But no, honestly, especially with Nico to hold off Perez on those closing moments on merit, it was unbelievable. Yeah, so happy for everyone in the team.
Well, I really do want to talk about that battle, because it must have been tense on the pit wall. But also, did you think once Perez got through on the final lap, that was going to be it? I mean, how impressive was it that Nico came back at him?
We knew Perez had going to have 2 goals at it, because, of course, everybody listened to every other's radios, right? So then Nico was clever enough to know that last opportunity is out of turn 3 into turn 4. So he just judged it perfection. Absolutely amazing. But, you can see from the pace during the stint 1, in the last part of the stint 1 for us, that our pace was similar to Perez. So if it was similar tire age, I knew we could fight. But again, to be fighting against Red Bull, it's like, what more can you ask for? It's amazing.
And you sandwiched the Red Bull with Kevin in 8th. You did mention that you thought he could get into the points with his pace. How pleased are you with the way the team handled the race today to put yourselves in a position to get that double point score?
I'm pretty happy, really. I think strategy was good, and then communication was pretty good. And then, of course, we had that close moments after the first round of pit stop where Kevin overtook Nico and Nico locked up, etc. Again, we handled that very well. Straight after that, addressed it. And then even when we are stuck behind Max, Max is towards the end of his second stint, we are lap behind, but then, of course, we are stuck. Then again, Kevin then came close, but then we just said, no, we're not fighting each other. Then we're going to keep the tires. So again, I think we just worked as a team very well. And yeah, execution was good. Communication was good. I'm just so happy that this result for everyone in the team.
Yeah, very impressive result. And speaking of Kevin, obviously his future's up in the air for next year. What does this sort of drive and performance and result do for his hopes of trying to keep a seat at the team?
Yeah, of course. It's decisions not made over one race. It's for over the course of the season, shall I say, or what he's been doing for last 2 seasons and a half or even more. So of course, but there's no complaints today. It's amazing. His sprint race was amazing. His qualifying was strong, and then race today, great. So yeah, it's a great result for Kevin as well as for the team.
Now we've got Silverstone next weekend, so another chance to go and score some points, but also it means you've got to get the motorhome packed up and get everything across to the UK. Would you rather there's a gap and you guys could celebrate this right now?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It'd be nice to have a moment to celebrate. I'm sure we'll celebrate a little bit tonight. But yeah, of course, it's pretty tough to triple headers. But we're really looking forward to it's our home Grand Prix, home Grand Prix for many teams here. So it's really, we're really looking forward to go there with this positive momentum and then trying to score points with both cars again there. That'd be amazing.
That really would. And very final question, because I will let you go and celebrate or pack down, whatever you need to do. And I asked about drivers. Any closer to naming at least one driver for next year?
You will find out soon. Sorry, I shouldn't say.
Soon what? Soon's more than saying no. Thank you and well done, Ayao.
Thank you.
Bye. Brilliant, Chris. Brilliant. Hey, Bob
There we
Varsha.
go.
Bob Varsha, I think Kevin Magnussen, if he doesn't stay as a driver, he potentially could be staying as a strategist, because during the middle of the race, when he was on the team radio and the team was telling him, you need to manage your tires, he said, F that. So there's your strategy for you.
Yes. I was just about to bring that up. I wonder if that counts as a black mark against Kevin. If my teammate is going to, throw caution to the wind, then by God, I can too. Which is cool. I have a question for you though, Chris.
Yes.
I'm thinking of Lando wobbling back to the pits, and for that matter, Max too, with punctured tires. But Lando, as you mentioned, had the one that was flapping everywhere and shedding chunks of rubber and tearing up the race car. Is he vulnerable to a sanction for driving an unsafe car to the pits, as Sergio Perez was nicked for 3 grid spots, I think it was, for his drive back to the pits at Montreal?
So it's an interesting one, because I'd say no. And the reason being, when Perez did it, he clearly had the rear wing damage. It was heavy. And driving that car at all was clearly going to risk stuff being everywhere and it making a mess and creating a safety issue. With Lando's, as we saw, like from the initial contact, and then as they drove down to turn 4, it was actually Lando who didn't have quite as bad a puncture as Max, so he was ahead for a while. And then halfway around the lap, he started to struggle more, and he was only 2 corners from home when he really actually slowed right down, because obviously his tyre was starting to delaminate. And it was the final corner where it started to actually cause damage to his car and really shed these parts. So I'd say there wasn't really much of a window between there and him getting into the pit lane. And so when he started driving back and was trying to drive back, the car was not in an unsafe state. It probably was for the final corner, I'll give you that. But I think that's probably something that will be, it may well be looked at. It might even be why Andrea Stella's gone to the stewards right now. So I'll keep an eye on my emails in case there was a summons for that. But I think he would get away with that one.
Well, time will tell. Boy, the stewards were kept hopping today.
Yeah, at one point, I thought
the
we were going to.
Steward was Johnny Herbert.
Oh, really? Okay. I thought we were going to get one of those. They even mentioned in commentary, like, are we going to get a decision after the race? But that was before all heck broke loose. All right, guys, we got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about lots more from the Formula One Austrian Grand Prix. Look at you, Kevin Kelly on YouTube. He says, somewhere in here, he said, Hulkenberg finishing ahead of Checo. Hulk beats Checo. There it is. And brought it up right in the interviews with Ayao. More comments here. Lots of comments about your old speed team, Bob. And
really?
Well, it just says, Speed Channel is great. Whatever happened to Habbo? Always liked him using the term large appendages.
Habbo's enjoying life, as is Steve Matchett.
And let's see what else. I think that was it on there on YouTube for the moment. Let's see. What are we going to talk about, boys? I want to talk about Alonso almost steaming into, what was it, one of the Alpine cars? Whose fault that was?
He actually did steam into Zhou Guanyu.
Oh, it was Zhou Guanyu. That's who it was. That's right.
He did. He hit him and got a 10-second time penalty for it. So, the stewards were very busy today.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought he had rammed him up the back, but on replay, it looked like he interlocked his left front with the Sauber's right rear, and that caused it to bounce in the air and over the track limits. So, yeah, that was weird.
I wrote down all the pit stops, or at least not all, most of them, and I'm going to talk about the McLaren pit stops being the best of the day. Let me come back. I missed a comment from someone named Dip. They said, I noticed that Checo actually had a hole in his left side pod at the end of the race. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's what Christian Horner referred to that with Chris. That he took the hole in the side pod and that slowed Perez down, took away his top speed.
Okay, I was talking to Casey when he said that actually.
Well,
all right, coming back.
This is David Hobbs, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back. John Massengale, Bob Varsha, and Chris Medland. Chris Medland still live at the Red Bull Ring. Chris, we were talking during the break about Alonso steaming into Zhou Guanyu. What was your take on that?
Yeah. Odd. I think we've just seen a few strange little mishaps and errors and underperformances from Alonso in recent weeks. I don't know if it's a sign of just how difficult that Aston Martin's got to drive, or maybe just, it's going to sound harsh, but whether there's a little bit of, your motivation dips when the car's not so competitive and then you get a bit frustrated. I don't know. But yeah, he did seem to make a big misjudgment, actually, because he made contact with Zhou on the exit of turn 3. And it just, it seemed a little bit rookie, dare I say. Found that very odd. I've just seen Andrea Stella leaving the stewards on the phone, maybe debriefing to Zach Brown right now about what's been going on. I've actually asked why he went to the stewards because no one can give me an answer at the moment. I've got someone at McLaren doing some digging because, as we were speculating in the break, maybe before the break, wasn't it? Maybe it's because of Lando driving his car back with such damage, but I will see or let you guys know when I hear more.
All right. Well, speaking of McLaren, Lando Norris was the driver of the day, and the percentage was 24%. I didn't see the whole score, but I saw 24%. I thought that seemed a little low. Bob, do you agree with that? I thought it would have been higher.
Well, in a crazy race like this one, there's probably a lot of credit to be spread around. I think that's fair. I'd love to see what the rest of the vote totals were. I'm sure Verstappen got his share as usual, thanks to the Orange Army. George Russell, I'm sure, took a lot of votes off of Lando just by virtue of being in the right place at the right time and winning the race when the front two knocked each other out. Who else was a possible candidate for driver of the day?
I mean, it's always a bit of a fan.
I don't know, maybe
vote.
Carlos.
Yeah, maybe Carlos Sainz. Yeah. Oh, okay. Our Casey found the results.
Let's see. 16% for Max. Yeah. Piastri, 10%. Leclerc, 8%. Russell, 6%.
Russell.
Those are the only guys that got votes?
All the way down in 5th place was the
Russell,
guy who won the race.
Of the people. Boy, sure cheapens a victory, doesn't it? 6% driver of the day.
Well, maybe they were listening to the television broadcast that you and I heard, Bob, where everyone was just dour about, well, I guess he was in the right place at the right time. And he did,
You know what?
he did start
All
third.
will be forgotten. Take the W.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
And got a hell of a start. Yep. Threatened to take the lead. Then, the weaknesses in the Mercedes setup and its tire life, made themselves known. Lewis Hamilton running behind him on the track for virtually the entire race, I think. And W is a W. Take it, move on. British Grand Prix coming up next. And real good chance you're going to see British drivers on the podium there between Russell and Lando and Lewis and on and on and on.
Yep.
I was going to say as well, I think the way the strategy was playing out, I felt like maybe George was on the worst strategy. He was quick up to the end of the middle stints. He did 2 stints on the mediums, and everyone was talking about how bad the hard tyre was going to be. But then when he put the hard tyre on, he was pretty comfortable on it. The gaps did come down. Piastri was catching him, but he measured it very well, and his restart was very good. After the virtual safety car, he pulled out a bit more of a gap, which seemed to be crucial. So I think that was a day where Russell just seemed to be really comfortable. And hey, look, that was his second win ever. He's doubled his tally today, but also he had half a chance in Canada, felt that he made a few mistakes and didn't quite get it together and was quite self-critical. Here, he's put himself in a position, as you say, to take advantage, and then still did have pressure to think about when suddenly the door opened and you heard Toto Wolff jumping on the team radio at the wrong time and shouting, "You can win this, George," when George was in the braking zone, so he wasn't too happy about it. But yeah, he didn't seem flustered at all, and just once the opportunity was there, he took it. So very, very solid performance in that sense from Russell, and it's why Mercedes rate him so highly.
Yeah, well, I want to jump on the George Russell bandwagon and talk a little bit more too, because where is he at head-to-head qualifying with Hamilton? 9-2, is that right, Chris?
That sounds right. Yep, I think 9-2 from this weekend.
Yeah,
I think Lewis qualified him in Barcelona, didn't he?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty amazing,
which was,
considering we're talking Lewis Hamilton here.
Yeah. Well, there was that really engaging comment from Lewis, who said, okay, the rest of the year I do not expect to out-qualify George, which suggests that there was some mechanism put in place, probably because Lewis has announced he's going to Ferrari next year, that they were almost saying you're not going to have the car to beat George in qualifying, or maybe they said don't beat George in qualifying. Who knows?
I don't know.
George does lead him in the championship, but only slightly.
Yeah, what is that? Where does they stand, Bob? Is it just a couple of points?
Well, we can look. They were 7th and 8th coming in. Yeah, it's just a small number of points. Let's see.
It'll have grown a bit today, though, won't it?
Yep, it's 111 to 85. 111 to 85. So it's pretty close, yeah. Yep. Chris, give us your eyes and ears right now. I mean, I know everybody's packing up, but you're still in the glorious Red Bull Ring and the valley of all the mountains there. It's just give us your eyes and ears.
I am indeed. I'm now walking down the paddock, just passing the Mercedes motorhome, which is busy, but I don't see Toto Wolff in there yet. I was told he was going to do his press call after the team celebration photo, which is why I went to the pit lane just now. But that pit lane is not ready for a team celebration photo. There's no Mercedes team members out there ready to celebrate. So I came back into the paddock. The sun is still beating down, I must admit. I've been standing at the wrong angle for a bit too long. On my left side of my face is way too warm. But right now there's still quite a few TV crews around getting reaction, but also, as I always mentioned with the pack-up, big trolleys and pallets and crates being wheeled out to go on the back of trucks and head to Silverstone or head elsewhere for some. Some will make a bit of a change and take it to a future race. If it's not something they feel the need to immediately take to the next racetrack, it could be going on somewhere else. But it's pack-up time. I'm having to skip over tyres that are just laying in the middle of the paddock, mainly intermediates, because they were definitely not needed this weekend. But we didn't need the weather today, did we, for once? Didn't need to throw that kind of curveball in there. If anything, that might have been a bit frustrating when it was all closing up.
I can't believe we
Yeah,
haven't.
that's a big part of the pack up too. They got to take all those wheels and tires back to Pirelli so they can dismount them, and the teams don't get to take any tires with them, and then take all the wheels back and load them in the truck. And that's a big part of pack up.
Yep. I can't believe we haven't
Certainly
talked
is.
about
It's
this.
quite funny how obviously a lot of people.
Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say, I can't believe we haven't
I was
talked about
say, we've got our delay.
I know our delay is back today.
Hey, Alphonse, Gaston, break it up.
All right, I'll go first. 11 races, wins for 4 different teams and 5 different drivers. So take that, everybody who was yelling about Formula One last year.
Did you just read my tweet?
Yes. Actually, no, I was reading the graphic that I made of your tweet that I tweeted out afterwards because I made it of your tweet.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, I was going to say that's just exactly how I worded it. I did a podcast pre-season, actually, where someone asked me how many winners or how many different teams win races this year. And I said 4. And the podcast came out just after Canada. And I thought I would have looked like a genius if George Russell had won there. Well, we're 2 races later on, and he's finally got that win. So, and the thing is that I know everyone will say, yeah, but it's only because Max got taken out and had the contact with Lando, and without that, there's no way Mercedes win. True, but that's kind of what happens when you get competitive racing.
Exactly.
You get more incidents. You get these flashpoints and battles that can cause things to happen. So, long may that continue, that we do have a fight at the front.
Yeah, I was thinking exactly that. I was thinking, somebody's just going to get taken out, but the reason he got taken out is he took himself out, but the reason it happened is because Lando was pressuring him, and so it was because it was a competitive race, and that wouldn't have happened last year. So, absolutely, 100% agree with you there. Bob, any other battles that you saw, or any other race topics that you're just itching to get out?
Well, I hate to be critical, but I think the TV coverage didn't cover itself with glory. There were so many interesting connections going on toward the front that there were a lot of teams we didn't see much of. Where was Yuki Tsunoda? Where was Lance Stroll? We saw these trains of cars under DRS running nose to tail, but there wasn't a lot of focus on individual drivers and how they were doing relative to their season to date and that kind of thing, and who they were battling with and how the gaps had gone up and down. We saw a lot of the names you can think of off the top of your head. Actually, we didn't see George Russell that much until the very last lap. I thought they could have spread it out a little bit. And, here's a look behind the curtain. When it comes to television, everybody wants to get on, and every sanctioning body is going to pressure the TV director to at least have a few moments with as many cars as you could get into the broadcast. And I think they could have done a little bit better job of that today.
Well, let's just run down the total order because I don't think we've done that yet. So George Russell wins, Piastri, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Nico Hülkenberg, Sergio Perez, Kevin Magnussen, Daniel Ricciardo, and Pierre Gasly round out the top 10, followed by Charles Leclerc, who came all the way from the back, and Ocon, Stroll, Tsunoda, Albon, Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Fernando Alonso, Logan Sargent, and, of course, Lando Norris with the DNF. And just thinking about what we haven't talked about, too, Logan Sargent. We haven't even mentioned him in this show. And not a great weekend for Logan. Go. Bob, not a great weekend.
No, once again, he actually qualified fairly decently recently. But yeah, this weekend just, there was nothing there. It's even his teammate Alex Albon, had some missteps, but at least he was, somewhat more competitive. He was actually got to mix it up with some cars toward the front. But I just kind of spent his day toward the back.
Yeah, I think he was last race.
The handwriting is on the wall.
That he qualified, that he out-qualified his teammate, but not this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, he was up in like 15th or somewhere.
The sprint here, yeah.
Well,
yeah, that's what it was. It was the sprint here. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah, he was in 16th ahead of Albon in the sprint. But yeah, I guess he's had little flashes of something, let's say, and I wasn't going to say brilliance because that's not what we've seen, but I guess the writing's on the wall. Well, hey, let's talk about the silly season a little bit. Chris, I hear that the Williams team is not really moving on from Carlos Sainz, but making some waves towards other drivers, making some advances. What are you hearing?
I think they'll have some options in mind, certainly. But from speaking to someone at Williams earlier today, they are still very much holding out hope for Carlos, and they're slightly concerned that he might end up having his head turned by Alpine and a potential Alpine Mercedes tie-up in the future. But that is all still potential. It's not a certainty by any stretch. And actually, they were saying that the arrival or return of Flavio Briatore, which has been very controversial, doesn't reflect well on that team. So they're hoping that actually partly just from a moral standpoint that maybe Carlos won't go there either. But they've get Carlos and Fernando Alonso going very well. Fernando Alonso managed by Flavio Briatore, so I imagine that means Carlos has a decent relationship with him already. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think there's a lot of drivers. I spoke to one actually, and I promised I wouldn't name them because it was just a bump into them in the paddock chat. But one of the drivers currently on the grid without a seat for next year, and I said, "Well, what do you think of what's going on? How does it feel? It's taking a while." And they said it's boring waiting for Carlos to make his decision because that's what they're all waiting for, and they want him to hurry up so that they can get on with their moves. But that they've got their kind of plan A, plan B, plan C in place. It surprised me actually that it seemed to be there's a lot of interest in the Alpine seat after what had been a poor run, and I think it is just recent form has then turned a few heads as well, which isn't always the best barometer. But that seems to be the seat now that quite a few are coveting.
Yeah. All right. Well, coming up after this, we're going to talk. We're going to finish talking about today's race. We'll talk a little bit about the British Grand Prix, including a controversy about ticket prices. You're listening to Speed City F1. Back after these messages. All right. Let's see. Going back to YouTube, seeing us check some comments. Joe of Oyster Bay says, "Just saw another replay. It looks like Lando went in to draw the foul since Max was moving previously." I need to watch that again, Joe, because that's not the way I saw it. Not the way the stewards saw it. But hey, I only watched it, live on TV.
I've also got Andrea Stella quotes written down from one TV interview he's done. Now, I don't know if we'll manage to get him on air. So if we get towards the end of the show and it looks like I won't grab him on air, then I'll read them out because they are punchy.
Oh, nice. Okay, great.
All right.
We're going to have about 10 minutes left when we come back, Chris, so we'll see.
We'll give it a couple. I'm going to walk back into the pit lane now to try and see about this photo at Mercedes.
All right. Andy P says, "Don't think next weekend is a sprint." Yeah, the next sprint race is Austin, if I'm not mistaken. And
that's correct.
Yeah, there's Andy P. He just confirmed what I just said. Joe says, I like the sprints and I don't like the sprints. They're weird. Yeah, I think all of us have a little bit of that going on for sure. For sure. Okay, Joe says, "I don't mean it was a bad move. I thought it was great." Okay, that's cool. Fair take. TW, always TW, he says, "Hit the like button." We have no likes.
That could also tally with what... Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, that could also tally with what Christian said, couldn't it? In that, maybe that's the view he was having, was like, he was drawing the foul, he was almost looking for it, but doesn't mean it was illegal. But just... maybe I'm giving Horner an out there that he doesn't deserve if that's what he was saying, but that tallies there with that kind of viewpoint.
Okay, Chris, Joe of Oyster Bay just ruined everything. He says, "How about Chris's Wi-Fi signal today?" So somebody knock on some wood or something. Actually, Joe, it's like 4 good races in a row. All right, coming back.
Hi, this is Jay Leno from JayLenosGarage.com, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Thank you, Mr. Jay Leno, for bringing us back. And we've got about 10 minutes left in the show. Chris Medland is stalking, as we like to say. He's trying to get Andrea Stella. And if he doesn't get him, though, stay tuned for these last 10 minutes, because apparently he has said some quite spicy things, and we'll actually read those to you if we don't get them out, if we don't get an interview with him, the man himself. So we shall see. But Chris, how is the paddock now? Is it clearing out? I mean, are there still people getting interviews? What's going on?
Well, yeah, I've actually gone into the pit lane now because Mercedes are about to do their celebratory photo. So all the team are coming through to the front and all the photographers are coming in here. But the timing's terrible because I told you that everyone needs to pack up and be quick. There's a line of lorries trying to come down the pit lane. The Haas lorry's at the head of the queue. I'm trying to work out what's behind it. I think it's someone from State.
It's a race.
Then we've got a V-carb lorry. Then we've got a Williams. I'm not kidding you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lorries right now queuing to come down. And yeah, these are big units, and this pit lane is not huge. So terribly timed as the team have just come out for their photo. So this might delay it, which might give us a chance of throwing in a question or two, actually. Although, no, they're organising them. So, yeah, I'm going to hopefully get a word from someone senior at Mercedes, at least, in reaction to this win. Obviously, the first one since Brazil 2022, isn't it, for the team? But once that's out of the way, I will bring you those quotes from Andrea Stella as well, because I do fear I won't get him before we're off air at 6. Well, 6.
Well,
that's
just don't
my
get
time.
run
Sorry,
over.
speaking local time.
Don't get run over by a truck.
Well, I mean, it made for good radio, wouldn't it, if you heard that? I'll keep the mic in hand if I do.
Dude, take one for the team.
Yeah,
literally.
this track, I don't know how much they've improved it. You know, this was my first racetrack back in '87. I haven't been back since, to be honest, because it went off the schedule for quite some time. But it's the kind of place, in the kind of location where I can imagine the line to get out of the place going to be pretty awful. Did anybody see the still pictures on the internet of the line of fans trying to get in? I mean, it went over the hill and far away. I mean, it was going to take hours for these people just to get into the racetrack. So you can imagine what it was like trying to leave.
Wow, I didn't see that. Chris, have you heard?
Yeah, it's not easy. Yeah, I was quite lucky, actually, myself, because I had to be in early for 2 events yesterday and today. So I've been having kind of like 12 to 13-hour days at the track, which have been long, but have meant I've not sat in traffic. I had someone who left an hour later than me for an hour's drive from Graz. It took me, I say an hour, it took 50 minutes for me to get in. It took them nearly 2.5 hours. So, yeah, that was the main thing to avoid as George Russell and now Toto Wolff come out from the Mercedes garage ready for the photo. And the lorries are having to stop, I think, at this point to get involved with this celebration. So it's a bit chaotic down here. I'm really hoping no one does get run over. But fortunately, the lorry driver that stopped, it's kind of just a haulage company. He's been asked to wait for 5 minutes, and he's okay with it. He's got his phone out. He's got a great view of the celebration photo. So he's like, I'll stay here.
Do any of them, those big lorries, say burger on the side of them?
I'll have to ask for that again. I don't know if you guys can hear the cheering going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, cheese.
Yeah, champagne's going everywhere. I'm trying to stay dry, but I'm going to dance my way into the middle once it's not so wet. And I've just bumped into someone who was at my wedding, who's filming all this. Anyway, it's chaos in the middle. It's actually one of my groomsmen who I went to school with as a kid. So, I've just got soaked. That's gone terribly. Right, George Russell was absolutely drenched, like completely drenched. Very happy. Toto Wolff might be free though, so let's get down to Toto.
Yeah.
Toto, I asked you on the grid if you could beat the Ferraris today. You beat everyone. How does it feel to get another win under your belt?
Yeah, it's good. It was about time. I'm really happy. The team so deserved it, and we had the pace for P3, but it's a motor race.
Well, and you were there. You were at the head of the queue to take advantage of it. But you were excited, weren't you? You were straight on the radio to George to tell him he could win.
Yeah, but I said it to him when he was doing 340 and about the break. So that's the single dumbest thing I've done in 12 years. But I was just excited.
And what does this mean for the team, though? It's been a tough run. Obviously, didn't get a win last year to get this win on the board.
It's good. We had a year without a victory last year, and that was the first since 12 years. No, since 12 years. So having done that, it's good now. Tick that box.
And for George, obviously only his second of his career. It's mad it's taken so long.
Yeah, he should have deserved it much earlier, but we just weren't able to give them a car that was competitive.
Well, it's certainly improving. We hope to see you fighting for more at the front in future. But just finally, what did you make of the big controversial moment that opened the door for the win?
I didn't see it, to be honest. You so look after yourself. We just saw them tangling, and then suddenly two punctures. So that was good.
It's a very diplomatic answer, but well done today.
Thank you.
That was good, he said. Yes. Man, you could hear his smile.
Certainly was.
Was Lewis in the
Yes.
picture by any chance?
Not that I saw, no. And admittedly, he wasn't even on the podium, was he? So we didn't have a trophy to celebrate with. And that's not always unusual. But that both teammates aren't in them. It depends how the other one's race has gone when that happens. But I think I don't think he'll be saddened by the fact the team won, but he'd want to be the one picking up the pieces himself, usually.
Sure.
So I'm just saying, I do believe George is now legged it inside to dry off. So I'm going to make a run for the inside as well as the Mercedes lorry tries to get in to start unpacking. This is chaos for them, the poor guys, trying to get on with their jobs and celebrate a win at the same time. But, I tell you what, guys, Ted Kravitz of Sky Sports F1 has got absolutely drenched. He's had a shocker, absolute shocker. I managed to dodge that. That's gone terribly for him. And it was George's fault, who's now come out with his medal on and his huge bottle of champagne to speak to Ted. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to linger and see if we get him afterwards. How long we got left in the show, guys?
We got 3 minutes left. We got to get in those Stella quotes too. So maybe you can tell us about what Stella said while you're waiting.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea, actually. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to, if I'm going to get George, it's going to be short and sweet at the end of this little chat with Ted. But it was the same as last time where Ted and I were fighting over George after his first win in Brazil. So we'll see if we can follow that up. But for Andrea Stella to Sky, it was Sky Sports again, this interview he gave. And he said on the contact between Lando and Max, he said the entire population of the world knows who was responsible except for a group of people. If you don't address these things, honestly, they will come back. They weren't addressed properly in the past when there were fights with Lewis that needed to be punished in a harsher way. Like this, you learn how to race in a certain way. And he says, we have so much respect for Red Bull and for Max that they don't need to do this. It can almost compromise your reputation. Why would you do that? And he says, the stewards found Max was fully to blame in this episode. It's about driving within the regulations. So, he's not happy at all about the fact that Max has been kind of allowed to race in this style. So,
wow. Yeah. Harsh words. What do you think, Bob?
Well, very obviously. Andrea Stella feels very strongly about who was at fault, and not only was Max at fault in Andrea's view, but it sounds like he considers it a punishable offense by more than just 10 seconds. Did he get any penalty points on his license?
He did, yes.
Is there anything? He did.
Two penalty points for that as well. I think it's more. Yes, Stella's annoyance seems to be that he's saying we've seen this before and it wasn't stamped out. And you can't, in a sense, like you can't blame Max for racing that way if it's gone unpunished up to now. But they feel it's not within the regulations and should have been punished previously, and then it wouldn't have happened today.
Yeah, it's the old Michael Schumacher situation. Michael was ruthless on the track, and so they legislated against it with the so-called Schumacher rule that you have to leave room on the inside once somebody's gotten any part of the race car inside of you in a corner. You have to give them room.
All right, Chris, we got 30 seconds. Any shot of getting George?
I'm afraid not. He's gone through the garage. He did his interview and ran. I think he actually was being polite and coming back because he obviously soaked Ted Kravitz. And I've run around the other side myself, but not bumped into him, sadly, trying to head him off at the pass. So I think that one's gonna escape us today. But we got Toto at least, didn't we?
I'm just excited for George Russell. All right, well, thanks everybody for tuning in. And of course, next Sunday we will be back. And Chris and I'll be back on Wednesday with our Wheel to Wheel show. So we will talk to you soon.